You're smoking some of the best dope God ever put breath in.
Thank God it's Friday!
Drop it like the First Amendment right out of the Constitution. Welcome one and all to the TYT Power Panel. Very excited for a number of reasons for today's show. Not only is it always nice whenever we can have somebody actually in studio, have someone today, but I'm joined by two both intelligent and very funny men, which should make my job today quite easy. First in studio, Elliot Morgan. Elliot has been on the Damage Report several times. I'm excited to do this show with you. Rebel HQ contributor and comedian. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, John. I'm very excited as the empire continues to crumble.
Exactly. And I think you all saw Trey is here as well. Trey Crowder, both writer and comedian, host of the Weekly Skews as well. Thank you for being here with what looks like fresh facial hair and haircut.
That's right, yeah. Got my ears lowered, as me ma used to say just earlier today. Got a fresh cut. And then the mustache, I don't know why I keep doing that. Every time I do it, I'm like, why did I do this? But then I just do it again, you know? So I don't know. You try to fix it up. I'm pushing 40, man. You start doing stuff. I don't want to look like a cop, but then I do. I don't know.
It's a good look.
Thanks. I
but a cool one. I have to say, I didn't know that both of you guys were gonna go so casual. I'm feeling like a little bit of a square right now, and I think that I might slip my jacket off during one of the shots.
Oh, second.
But yeah. But anyway, poor attire choices aside, we do have a great rundown today full of interesting, fascinating, and in some cases deeply chilling news having to do with both the administration's ongoing crusade against the very concept of trans people, the annihilation of a free press, free commentators, free comedy, all of that's gone, and we'll be giving our thoughts. And also AOC, apparently word from her camp that she's gearing up for something. What might it be? We'll give our thoughts on that as well. And as we do, of course, send in your comments and your tweets during the social breaks. We'll respond to those. But with all that said, why don't we jump into our first topic?
The militant transgender movement, is that a domestic terrorist threat?
If you are encouraging people to commit acts of violence against the United States government or against your fellow Americans, absolutely, you're involved in a terrorist movement. I don't know enough about that particular organization.
That right there, of course, is Jesse Waters talking with JD Vance about the militant transgender movement, which to, I guess, his credit, I guess JD Vance says he's not familiar with that organization, probably because it's not an organization and it's not a movement. It's just a thing that's been conjured up in the minds of Fox News hosts and hacks in the Trump administration, but it's what you should be focusing on right now. Don't think or talk or legislate around guns or mental health or anything like that. It's all trans 24/7. And although he didn't 100% take the bait there, JD Vance did once again spread the knowing lie that political violence is somehow uniquely a problem of the far left, as you'll see in this.
I don't know enough about that particular organization, but what you increasingly see, Jesse, is you see people in the trans community and other members of the far left who are saying they are so threatened by negative rhetoric that they must take arms and attack people. If your movement is telling you to commit acts of violence against people for speaking words that you don't like, number one, you're evil, and number two, you are engaged in a terrorist movement, and that's part of what we have to root out in the White House. And this is very important, Jesse. I've talked to a lot of people about this. I've talked to Stephen Miller probably 7 times in the past 2 days. We are working very hard to ensure that the funding networks for left-wing violence, that the radicalization networks for left-wing violence, that if you encourage or fund your fellow Americans or anybody else to commit acts of violence because you disagree with political speech, you are going to be treated like a terrorist organization, and we're going to go after you.
Now, in the strictest sense, that's not something that anybody who might be watching this show should be worried about, because of course those funding organizations and networks don't actually exist, because that's not a thing. Again, they're just making that up. But then also don't feel too comfortable, because they're not going after terrorist funding networks, they're going after the left. And they're going to state that anyone who says something that they don't like is committing acts of violence. We've been seeing that all this last week. And again, like, we cannot stress enough how much JD Vance is lying straight out of his ass about the history of political violence, as well as advocacy for political violence in our country. We could run through all of the different incidents. We could talk about Dylan Roof, for instance, and it would be a great opportunity for Kash Patel to actually find out who that is. We could talk about all the different attackers, about Melissa Hortman, about the Tree of Life, about El Paso. We could run through all of those, but they don't care. They're not gonna convince their mind. They're going for something here. And when it comes to the actual advocacy for violence, I mean, I don't know if like you're new to following politics or something, but the threat to start a civil war has been a constant on the right and right-wing media for literally years. Anytime you even hint at the possibility of some sort of gun regulation, they talk about the need to potentially take up arms. You've got these action groups that, like the neo-Nazi fight clubs, which are, like, even as we speak now, marching across America and saying that the white man needs to rise up. You obviously had the advocacy for violence against immigrants. You had people like Laura Loomer who were cheering the possibility that migrants could be eaten by alligators. Like, again, when it comes to either the actual violence, the actual incidents of terrorism, or the advocacy for it, it is not difficult to find a textbook worth of examples of the right wing doing it, but all of that needs to be ignored. It is politically inconvenient to acknowledge, because Jesse Waters and JD Vance are trying to advance their ideological goals here. Now, obviously I have a lot to say about this. I'll give more thoughts, but let's jump now to Elliot. What do you make of what we showed you?
I mean, I've heard of transphobia. This is like the most literal form of transphobia, being like, we're actually scared that they're going to do like terrorist acts based on absolutely no evidence whatsoever. Also, I am kind of enjoying them twisting themselves into pretzels to kind of come up with an excuse for this. I do admire JD Vance's ability to do this like political answer thing, where like if you pay attention to what he's saying, both of those things don't actually match up at all. He just sort of talks about a general thing and then goes, absolutely, yeah, it's definitely the trans people. But what struck out to me the most is he mentioned he talked to Stephen Miller 7 times in the past 2 days. And I don't think that can be good for anybody's brain. And I feel bad for him, but someone needs to check on him.
Trey, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I say all the time that it feels like I often feel like I'm being gaslit by reality, all the time. And this is another good example of that. The whole conversation around the left being more violent and everything, the whole time it's just like, okay, but there's so many cases to prove that isn't true. But also, even aside from that, even what they otherwise think about the left, do you know what I mean? It's like they both think that, like, the stereotype of the left is like some, like cowardly, feckless barista type who wants to take everybody's guns away and wouldn't hurt a literal fly because they lack the, the conviction necessary to live in a man's world and all that type of stuff. But also, they're like gay Jason Bourne at the same time, you know what I mean? Just like Antifa, black ops operatives that are like secretly picking everybody off left and right and all this stuff. And it's like none of it makes any sense. But also, as far as like trans people, so talk about being like gaslit by reality. Like, the truth is they're way more likely to be victims of violence just because of, what they are. And so then to be told that's already been the case. So now for like the government and the president and vice president to tell everybody that agrees with them that, oh, actually they're terrorists who are a threat to all that we hold dear, you got to imagine that's only going to get worse for them. And they have to, just like everything continues to get worse for them as long as these people are in charge for literally no reason. They just want to exist. And even that is just too offensive for them to allow. So I don't know, it's out of control.
Yeah, we actually have a scoop that we'll turn to in just a sec about another way that it's going to get worse for them soon. But yeah, I love that point that we are simultaneously too effete and weak to run a nation, but we're also DEI Jack Reacher. I don't know. It's very strange the way that they think. And also in terms of the actual violence, like, we live in a country that is so sick that even at this point in the year, we've had over 300 mass shootings in America. And depending on which study you look at, trans people make up something around 1% of the population. They're not even keeping pace with cis people. Like, the idea that forget everything about white nationalist violence, white supremacists, neo-Nazis, whatever. They're not even they're barely interested in like Islamic terrorism anymore. They just moved on to everything as trans people. And let's say that this guy ends up to have actually been motivated by something having to do with trans people, which has not been established. That would be what, 3 ever? We've had thousands of mass shootings in America. They are starkly, disproportionately underrepresented among mass shooters. And it's weird that people don't point that out.
Yeah. It's also, I mean, if you look at the data too, you can tell that they're just trying so hard to gin this up and force this narrative where, I don't know if you've ever met like a non-binary or trans person. These are not violent people, but even if you extend this little fantasy of theirs and you're like, okay, so what does this mean? If anybody ever talked to someone who then went out and did a violent crime, does that mean they now are like on trial or something? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, why don't I quickly tell you a little bit about some of Ken Klippenstein's recent reporting. He's an independent journalist and friend of the show. So he says that evidently trans people, just in general, might soon be labeled as terrorists by the Trump administration. They're apparently planning to designate transgender people as, quote, violent extremists in the wake of Charlie Kirk's murder. An anonymous senior intelligence official told Ken they are cynically targeting trans people because the shooter's lover was trans, which again, that has not been firmly proven, but let's say that it's true. The administration has convinced itself that the Charlie Kirk murder exposes some dark conspiracy. And what would this actually mean if you were to do this? Senior official explains that there is no process per se for dealing with trans people as a threat group, but feels that trans individuals will be increasingly targeted under the banner of violent extremism, specifically as a new subcategory of the new threat category, nihilistic violent extremists, or NVEs. And that would give Trump officials political and media cover. They've preferred in the lead up to this to not directly name transgender people, but preferred euphemisms like gender ideology extremism, more just like making up terms basically. Rather than talking about people as an identity, they pretend that they are not actually people and they have some sort of ideology, which again, the right wing just made up and is pushing. And it's not just idiots like Jesse Waters. It's also idiot members of the Trump family like Don Jr., who posted this scientifically accurate poll. What's the greatest domestic terror threat facing America? Antifa, Trantifa, or they're the same thing, which is winning pretty handily, and that's a lot of votes. So I think that Don is on to something there. Trey, what do you think?
Yeah, well, the Antifa in the first place, like I know they've talked about designating that as a domestic terrorist organization too, or whatever. And at first I was like, well, I'm not that worried about that on the kind of it not being like really that much of an actual thing, it's just kind of like a boogeyman. It's certainly not very centrally organized or whatever. But then I realized that they could just start saying that people like I or you or the three of us are in Antifa because, we're on the side of free school lunches or whatever. And that means Antifa and now we're terrorists. And I was like, oh yeah, this could get real bad real quick. But trans people, I mean, it's like I said earlier, just imagine already it was bad enough if you're just walking down the street as a trans person and there's like a particular group of chuds that clocks you from across the way. And, you're like in fear for your life, I'm sure, immediately, without the implication in their minds of you being on your way to commit like a terrorist attack or something. So it's gonna get people hurt and or killed, like for sure. And people that are just trying to live their lives. So it's completely irresponsible, but they always got to have something to be terrified of. And there's always got to be an out group and another and a boogeyman. Like they don't know, so much of their like rhetoric and philosophy doesn't work in the absence of those things. And they landed on trans people a good while ago, and they're going to keep running with it as long as they can.
Elliot.
Yeah, I think everything you said right there is correct, Trey. It cracks me up when they like do these polls on Twitter as if they're like doing some kind of science or something, and they throw in their like pithy little remarks and then they point to it and they're like, look, 83% said this. And it's like, dude, you've spent the past however many years demonizing this group of people. Of course, that is what your very right-wing audience is gonna say. And it just speaks to how I think conspiratorially minded they are. I almost got it out correct, but you get the idea.
Yeah, it was a good recovery there. I think you did okay.
A tongue twister.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely absurd. I agree with the point that it's almost certainly going to result in even more violence, perhaps lethal violence against that community. But none of these people care. Don't see them as people. Don't see them as humans. Certainly don't see them as Americans. In terms of now they're going to individually classify transgender people, which they can't, as terrorists, in the same way that, as you pointed out, they're designating Antifa as a terrorist organization when it's not an organization, it doesn't have a membership. And all of this is intentionally vague so that it can be whoever they need it to be.
Right.
And I would personally say it seems a little bit deeply ironic that at the same time they're implying that you identifying or opposing fascism makes you some sort of enemy of the state, as they're basically speed running like the 14 classic identifying points of fascism. One of which, by the way, is a hyper focus on perceived sexual issues and perversion in the view of the state. So they've got that pretty covered right here as well. I would just make the general point, although I guess you identify in this way under your own risk, I think every American, every patriot has an obligation to be vigorously opposed to fascism. We've kind of had that as our thing for generations. Didn't we send hundreds of thousands of soldiers over to Europe specifically to do that? When did that come out of vogue? I'm not sure, but they've managed to turn the world topsy-turvy yet again. You wanted to make a point?
Yeah, I just want to say how refreshing it is to just talk to a couple of cis dudes and all three of us just be like, hey, maybe leave those folks alone a little bit. It feels nice, so thanks, guys.
Yeah. Well, with that said, I think that we're going to take our first break. We're going to respond to some of your comments, and when we come back, we're going to catch up with all of what's going on with Jimmy Kimmel and the tattered remnants of your First Amendment. Welcome back, one and all, to the social break. Let's see what's going on out there in the audience. Eclectic says, drop it like any late night host who won't kiss Trump's ass, 100%. Yeah, I feel like kind of at this point, if a year from now you're still on the air, kind of suspect, actually, that you've managed to survive, but we'll see. Solidarity Work says, yay, Trey and Elliot. Yes. And John, but mostly Trey and Elliot, yes. Egypt says, Trey, the stash is a good look for you. I like it, I think it's good.
Well, you guys are too kind. I appreciate that.
I don't know what I count for, but Brunswick Dragon says, love it. I didn't know I needed stash energy until now, but I'm energized. Wow.
Yeah.
Kelly K says, I've never seen people more obsessed with people's genitals than the right wing. Worry about what's in your own pants, weirdos. 100%. CDN Northstock Dad says, militant trans movement, WTF, trans people are less than 3% of people. So they're small enough that they can be attacked and made the enemy for the daily 5-minute hate. No, but it's really, like, it's almost perfect from their point of view that you perpetually demonize a group that there's a good chance your audience will never have even met a single person of. So you can tell them anything you want. They got nothing to go on. And I saw a poll result earlier today. I don't remember where the poll was, and it's possible depending on which poll you go to, it's different. But they asked people, what percentage of the United States population is trans? And people said 21%. And I just thought, I think we can hit the reset button on this society, because I think that we went wildly off course at some point if you think that. Anyway, Bart Kyle says, with a gif of one of the puppets from Team America vomiting, I don't know if my stomach can handle John's AOC crush. I think I better purge my lunch out for preparation. My support for the Congresswoman running for president is as professional as it can be, which can't be said for you, Bart. Anyway,
Wrong, sir, wrong.
Ol Mole says, one thing you always want to do is choose someone to abuse who you can be fairly confident has no connections to anybody in power, sort of what we were saying. Also helps if they are widely disliked. Trans folks fit this all well. There's a lot that I don't and will never understand about our society, but I will never understand how more conservatives don't think it's weird that they're now obligated to spend hours every day thinking about trans people, when just 5 years ago, they would have gone months without ever once thinking about the existence of trans people. And now the people that they look up to, the people they admire, in some cases worship, are creepy little freaks, absolutely obsessed with a community they know absolutely nothing about. Why does that not trip off more red flags for people? I don't get it. Anyway, 11 seconds. Okay, It's Just Vegas says, Trey about to hop in an F-18 and fly with Mav. That's pretty good. I should give a Blue Apron gift card. We'll be right back.
You're smoking some of the best dope God ever put breath in. You're Willie Nelson high.
Welcome back to the Power Panel. One and all, more news coming at you, starting with this.
And for all the concern about the First Amendment, I mean, they're apoplectic, Jesse. What about all the amendments that Charlie Kirk lost? Because Charlie Kirk has no amendments right now, none. And the outrage I see over Jimmy Kimmel, I wish I would have seen that for the death of a father and a husband who should still be here.
So that is Kayleigh McEnany making sure that you understand that she's done with the First Amendment. She's moving on. It's not a concern anymore. And she's also pretending to believe that there was not a massive, I would say almost universal outpouring of support and empathy after the tragic death of Charlie Kirk. But it was pretty clear from the very beginning that no matter how many times, no matter how strongly, unequivocally, every prominent Democrat, progressive host made clear that this was an unacceptable tragedy and that their heart went out to the family and the supporters of Charlie Kirk who've lost someone that they admired. All of that can be conveniently and selfishly pushed into the bin so that you can go after the people you want to go after. And that's what she's doing here. She loves that Jimmy Kimmel has been fired, specifically because Donald Trump cannot take any criticism, whether it's from Stephen Colbert, whether it's from Jimmy Kimmel, soon perhaps Whoopi Goldberg as well. All of them must go because Donald Trump has the most sensitive fifis in America. But in any event, that wasn't all of Kayleigh McEnany's commentary, so let's jump now to this.
We're at a place in this country where the media can just go out and lie. And then you have Jimmy Kimmel, to your point, last block, coming out and not just saying he doesn't have a motive. No, he was MAGA. That's what Jimmy Kimmel said. The first draft of history is being written now, and it's being written by people who are out there overtly lying. But we will not let that happen. And thank God for President Trump, who has the biggest microphone in the world, taking that microphone and calling out the left for their rhetoric. The leftist ideology is what animated this deranged individual, and Trump won't let it happen.
Yeah, Donald Trump as the president does have one of the biggest microphones in the world. And what he could have chosen to do is what any president would have been free to do in the past, which is see something they disagree with, even if in my view, they're intentionally misinterpreting what it is that Jimmy Kimmel said, and speak out against it. He could do that. Joe Biden could have done that. Obama could have done that. No, that's not an issue, and that's certainly not illegal or unconstitutional. But when you dispatch the head of the FCC to put pressure on private industry to fire a prominent critic of yours, or else they'll suffer in terms of their business, that's not anything to do with a microphone, okay? That's not anything to do with the bully pulpit. That's a violation of at least 3 different Supreme Court decisions, at least one of which I know was unanimous. And so she should be a little bit less focused on his big microphone, a little bit more focused on his tiny shriveled little balls that made it so that he could not take any criticism. He is uniquely sensitive, far beyond the bounds of any normal run-a-day snowflake or anything. That is why our First Amendment is being ripped up. It's not that he lied. I don't see any lie in anything that he said. I think that they're intentionally, again, misinterpreting what Jimmy Kimmel said, but it's nothing to do with that. Donald Trump has been whining and bitching about Jimmy Kimmel for years at this point. And he made clear after Stephen Colbert was similarly fired after pressure was put by the Trump administration that Jimmy Kimmel would be next. It has nothing to do with Charlie Kirk. That is a transparent, shallow little fig leaf of an excuse. They were always gonna go for him, and he's certainly, in my view, not gonna be the last. We'll get to more, but Elliot, what do you think?
It's beautiful. I'm just thinking about those tiny balls again, and I got a little distracted. But yeah, I mean, they're hitting this line over and over again and trying so hard to make this out of nothing. I'm really curious if the actual Trump supporters care at all, I mean, about this Jimmy Kimmel thing specifically, and also in terms of the whole Jimmy Kimmel thing, like, they weren't even like that edgy of jokes. There wasn't even anything that like over the line or over the top. I would have expected, or at least hoped, that if he was gonna get pulled off the air, there would have been a little something we could all be like, oh my gosh. And they just kind of generated it out of nothing. And I am also curious, like, what in leftist ideology would push someone to want to go after a political influencer? That still doesn't make sense to me. So maybe at some point they'll get to that.
Trey?
Man, yeah. Again, the whole feeling gaslit by reality thing. It's been so wild to me for so long how often I can hear things that these people say, and if like completely free of context, I would agree with it, but with context, I'm like, what? Wow, really? Like when she said, you know, we have people in the media, people in the news that just lie. They just make things up. They lie. The first draft of history is being written right now, and it's being written by people who lie, and we can't let that happen. And I'm like, right, yeah, but you know, but you though, you know, but it's you. Like I just feel insane every day. But and you know, Charlie Kirk himself was he was a big First Amendment guy and all that. The idea that the death of a person who had rights like negates the rights of everyone still left living is like, I'm not sure how any of that is supposed to make any sense. And yeah, they've been, like you said, again, talk about them lying. They just say things and make it so in the hearts of their followers. They was like, yeah, where was all this type of outrage when Charlie Kirk was shot, when was murdered in cold blood? And like you said, almost universal outpouring of support and empathy from from everybody on the right, even people on the left. And at worst, people were like walking on eggshells about it, if for no other reason than they were frothing at the mouth and threatening to kill us all over it, like all over Twitter and social media. And you know, like people were losing their minds. Everybody was like, look, you guys are upset right now. Let's all just take it down a notch, right? But doesn't seem like that's in the cards. They're going to ride this as far as they can, but it's I don't know. It's wild.
Yeah, and again, as we all remember, and it's been remarked many times, I'm old enough to remember how they responded when Paul Pelosi's skull was cracked open. There was no outpouring of support. There was either ignoring or mockery. Mockery, conspiracy theories from some of the same exact people who were so aggrieved that people were celebrating on social media. And of course, celebrating has come to encapsulate a whole lot of behavior. Actual celebrations, jokes, quotes, all of that has to be the maximally most offensive thing so that we can get as many people fired as possible. By the way, flash forward, I don't know, 6 months, 3 years, 10 years, when Joe Biden, who's an old man, finally passes, what do we think they're gonna do? What do we think they're gonna say? I mean, come on, we know exactly who these people are. By the way, you could play these same games. Because Charlie Kirk was a guy who had rights, and now because he tragically died, he doesn't, so nobody has any rights. The right winger who assassinated Melissa Hortman appears to have been primarily motivated by anti-choice sentiment. So, I know that previously, if you support abortion rights, you could organize and you could do speeches and you could raise money. And if you oppose it, you could do that. Well, yeah, but Melissa Hortman doesn't have any rights anymore. And so I guess you don't get to organize or speak freely if you're opposed to abortion rights. And we should use the federal government to shut down those organizations. I mean, their dehumanizing way of speaking, their radicalization of people online evidently led to at least one person. And of course, you can go back to all the attacks against abortion doctors There's been any number of different terror attacks from right-wingers on that. So I guess the next, President Buttigieg, I suppose, is gonna have to go after it. And if you cry about the First Amendment, just remember that Kayleigh McEnany laid the groundwork for what President Buttigieg might do. Now, that said, I wanna go to some of the other right-wingers commenting on what's going on with Kimmel, starting first with Mike Pence.
The First Amendment of the Constitution protects against government censorship of individuals. And we ought ever to be vigilant to ensure the right of every American to express their views without government interference or censorship. The First Amendment, though, does not protect entertainers who say crass or thoughtless things, as Jimmy Kimmel did in the wake of a national tragedy. And private employers have every right to dismiss employees, whether they're television talk show hosts or otherwise, if they violate the standards of that company. Now, I would have preferred that the chairman of the FCC had not weighed in.
Yeah, but he did though. That's why Kimmel was fired. Yeah, they could fire Kimmel for something that he said if they thought that it crossed the line, but reporting from inside of the room where it was being debated said that they did not believe that it was. That is not why he was fired. He was not fired because they had a problem with what he said. He was not fired because of ratings. He was not fired because of his high salary. He was fired because Brendan Carr put pressure on corporations with the threat of them either losing their broadcast licenses or having their very lucrative expansion plans kiboshed by the Trump administration. That's why he was fired. The timeline could not have been any clearer, and he was clearly targeted, Jimmy Kimmel, because of Donald Trump's desire to take out his critics. All of this is so clear, I don't understand why at this point Mike Pence would be pretending to not understand that, considering that he too has been the target of angry mobs sent by Donald Trump. So it's just disgusting. And look, I understand. But Twitter is just full of right-wingers pretending to think this was just a business decision, which is, I'm sure, very funny for them. Okay, well, that said, let's say President Gavin Newsom in a few years decides, you know what, I don't like Greg Gutfeld. Now, obviously, I can't fire him, but I could threaten to pull the broadcast licenses of Fox News. Then they'll fire him. No First Amendment violation. Now that probably won't happen, the left isn't as vindictive as the right, but they are laying out a perfect playbook for how you could do that. Or maybe you don't like some right-wing comedians or something like that. You know, like that Kill Tony guy who was like mocking Puerto Rico. I don't know, maybe you put pressure on Netflix to not give him another special or something. Again, that wouldn't be the president firing him from that. And we can't see a pattern where you put pressure on a company, even though, again, the Supreme Court has been very clear that the government cannot do that. And so they can pretend to be ignorant of this all they want. We see what's actually happening. Trey, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, pretty much what you said. Like the way Pence started, it's like, yes, that is true. And that's the argument so many right-wing people are making on Twitter right now. They're like, look, hey, what about when Roseanne did or whatever? You guys been saying for years. Private companies can fire people, employees for whatever reason. It's not the First Amendment, right? And they just keep acting like that is what happened here because that's like the official line. But as anybody with eyes and ears who's paying any amount of attention, and Carr himself made it pretty clear that's not the case. This was government like interference. It came from the FCC. It came from Donald Trump. Even when Colbert got announced, they weren't going to renew his contract at the time, a couple weeks ago, whenever that, what time is the construct? But you know, when that happened, and Trump like tweeted Jimmy Kimmel is next and all this stuff. And now that's like, this was like governmental retaliation against a guy in the comedy world for, criticizing the regime. And it's just, I've been thinking, because I being a comedian, all these, you mentioned Kill Tony, but just all these other like comics who like drifted further and further rightward over the past few years. And if for a lot of them, the impetus for that was the First Amendment, was free speech. They're like, the left wants to dictate what we can and can't say. Nothing's more important than the First Amendment. And, the left wants to censor us and we can't have that. And that was the beginning of them going further and further to the right. And now you have people in the comedy world, facing governmental retribution for, saying things that the president doesn't like. And it feels like we're just not that far away from like me calling Trump fat and then getting defenestrated, right? And it's just so ironic that all these comedy guys helped so much with all this in the name of free speech. And now this is happening. I'm just wondering, like, how they're feeling about that right now. And I'm sure they can find, and a couple of them have come out and said like, no, this ain't cool or whatever, but still it's like, yeah, who could have possibly seen this coming? You know, back in the most sensitive, thin-skinned, narcissistic person of all time in the name of free speech. But it's just, I don't know, it drives me nuts.
Yeah, Elliot.
Yeah, I'm starting to think some of maybe those free speech comedians were like doing it for the money, maybe more so than anything else. But who knows? I also with the whole Mike Pence thing, like these guys are just masters of moving the goalpost constantly. Like he starts out by saying something just outlandishly untrue, which is the First Amendment doesn't protect entertainers, and then he just kind of subtly moves it on over to it being a private corporation and them having the right to fire somebody. It's like that's not what the question was. That's not as a disconnect, and yet they can get away with it because after years, I guess, of political experience, you can just sort of spout off this nonsense and your base will eat it up. But it is incredibly frustrating. I'm glad there's comedians like Mark Maron who are calling these comedians out, and I hope more of them step up a little bit.
Yeah, and you brought up the example of Roseanne. I'll end on this. Like people are like, oh, what about Roseanne? What about Gina Carano? Yeah, you could have a problem with both of those, but in both of those cases, it was people having an issue with it and the company making a decision. That's different. It was no, Biden didn't say that Roseanne needed to be fired. It would have been difficult for him to do that considering that Donald Trump was president when that happened. That you can say that that's cancel culture and it shouldn't happen. But again, it has nothing to do with the government. This was the head of the FCC doing that. Head of the FCC under Biden wasn't going on podcasts to put this sort of pressure because the government wasn't entirely staffed by influencers who were constantly doing shows every single day. That's not what was happening. It is what is happening right now. Your First Amendment is supposed to protect you from government interference. The government is interfering. That's why we have a problem with this. And all of them are pretending not to get that. So Mike Pence is like, he throws on as like a last thing. I guess I would have preferred if he didn't say anything, even though he did. Senate Majority Leader John Thune said, well, my preference would always be to let the companies make economic market decisions, but they didn't. That's not what happened, and that's not how the Constitution doesn't often reference your preferences. That's not generally what the law is supposed to be about. Senator Lisa Murkowski said, I do think it was very unusual for the head of the agency to issue what seemed to be very challenging comments. Yes, it was very unusual. That's the strongest language we can come up with. Rand Paul said the First Amendment says nothing about private companies firing people who say despicable things. I'm with Sinclair on this one. The FCC should not be involved, however. Again, they were though. They were involved. That's why this is a story. If it was just people on Twitter complaining about Jimmy Kimmel, that would have been the end of it and we'd be moving on with our lives. And by the way, if a person like Jimmy Kimmel, a person who is so just regular Democrat, non-edgy, if their commentary bothers you so much, you know what you can do? Not watch it. And that's not just me coming up with some wild strategy. Do you know how many seconds of Greg Gutfeld I've ever watched? None, because I know I wouldn't enjoy it, so I don't force myself to watch something that's just gonna anger me. Why do you live your life the way you do if you're choosing to watch things that are only gonna cause you to abdicate any attachment you supposedly had to the Constitution you supposedly hold so dear? Any final thoughts before we move on?
I would say just in my opinion, just out of pure morbid curiosity reasons, you should try out at least a couple of minutes of Gutfeld because it truly beggars belief. It's one of the most fascinating things you'll ever see in your life. Yeah. They have a room full of like-minded people in their demographic, a live audience, and they don't make those people laugh. Like it's just pure silence, nothing the whole time, doing bits, doing jokes. No one's laughing. It's nuts. It's crazy. It's like some I don't know, avant-garde thought experiment version that somebody would have come up with for a late night comedy show. But you can see that once and sort of try to process it and then move on with your life. But yeah, it's something to behold.
Yeah, this is my conspiracy theory is that Donald Trump is just an old person who likes to stay up late and scream at cable television. And so most of the time the television doesn't do what you say when you scream at it. And he somehow has figured out to make the television actually do what he says. And it's honestly impressive for an old senile man. And I'm happy for him.
Yeah, he has like an old man version of what way too many people, particularly men, but not just men, have. Everybody just does stuff that makes them unhappy. And it's all tied to the internet and all that. Just stop doing that. Like, Like, I don't listen to the 1,000 right-wing brosphere podcast because it made me mad, so I'm not interested. I don't spend a lot of time on Twitter. Why do people in a time that is already so difficult in so many disparate ways choose to make themselves less well? I don't get it. And I was also lying there. When Gutfeld's show first started, I did watch a couple of minutes of it.
Yeah.
I didn't understand what was supposed to be funny. But the thing is, it's wildly popular. Like, I literally don't even understand what the joke is supposed to be, but they do seem to like it.
Yeah, I don't know. You answered, it's like those two things are related though. It's like, you're not like that, I'm not like that. I don't watch things that I know that I hate either. But like these people, it's like if they, if they can't be frothing with rage, they just don't know how to be. It's like that like they need it. They need the anger. They need to be upset. They need to have things to be mad about, or else, they just have nothing to live for.
Yeah, you guys have sold me on it. I'm gonna watch it tonight, so thank you. I'm incredibly excited.
Good way to ruin your day. Okay, I think we'll take our second break. When we come back, we'll figure it out. We'll have more stuff for you.
Your all-time favorite president, me.
Welcome back, one and all. YTP Renewed reminds us that Trump celebrated having the tallest building in Manhattan when the Twin Towers fell. He did. He was called, and that was one of the first things he thought of, which stood out to people. And it was a very similar genre of bizarre Trump thing, like the ballroom comment when he was asked about Charlie Kirk. It is not despicable of Jimmy Kimmel to point out how utterly weird that is. It was a very weird thing. Anyway, Mint Man has been a member for 19 months and says, speaking of advocating for violence, didn't Trump say the Second Amendment people could do something about Hillary? He 100% did, and we all knew what he was saying when he said that. Derek, member for 23 months, says, at least in Australia, we have more free speech than the US. Our journalists can ask questions of politicians and criticize them. Yeah, it would be nice for us to have that someday. Killjoy 100 says, duh, everyone knows the most violent people are drag queens who wear high heels and feather boas. Run! ACGC says the right wing can't define the differences between socialism, fascism, and communism. They sure do like the uneducated. Yeah, and that's why, because they don't know the difference, that's why Trump called Harris all three of those things, almost in the same breath. Mikey, member for 58 months, says we should use the whoever smelt it dealt it argument against people like Waters. Trans are bad. Jesse, huh? Sounds like a girl's name. You have pretty delicate features too. I think you were a trans man. I use whatever tool you want. It's not my strategy necessarily, but it probably would trigger him quite a bit. He does spend a disproportionate amount of his day worrying about doing something unmasculine. Anyway, there is a very, very generous super chat from Eduardo, which might be the largest super chat that I've seen, that says, Apple recently hired some of the members that were responsible for the pager attacks in Lebanon. Now, I'm not familiar with that. I have not seen that. I don't know what they would be hiring them for, if that is true, which we should look up. That is dramatic. Are either of you familiar with that?
No.
Yeah, seems like a weird feature to, try to.
That's a good point.
iPhone 18 or whatever the next one is.
I thought the new iPhone Air was mass appeal was that it was thin, not that it might blow up in your pocket. But we will look into that. And in any event, Eduardo, thank you for the support. I do appreciate it. The Cuckoo's Nest says the right wing commits roughly 90% of violence, political or not, fact. But lately, 2IT has been making it seem like there's an equivalent amount of left wing violence. Love everyone on this panel, though. I don't know specifically what that's a reference to. I'm certainly we're not saying that here, and I agree. I mean, I think it's somewhere between 80 and 90% is right wing. I would check the specific facts, but unfortunately, the study is no longer available on the DOJ's website. Let's see, Neil Whittington says, DJT is an illegal president. You all gotta check out the Australian 60 Minutes broadcast. They don't hold back on any Trump comments, just like TYT. Australia seems like a fabulous place. I gotta go there at some point. We'll be right back.
Everyone's like, oh my God, in and out, in and out. And I'm like, my controversial non-political opinion is that it's overrated.
Wrong, wrong.
Welcome back, everyone. So Barr is the sort of person that would totally turn on a presidential candidate because of their opinion on like burgers or like 2001: A Space Odyssey or something. Like he doesn't care what your position on healthcare, the environment is. You better like the long tracking shots in 2001. But anyway, let's turn back to the news. In the wake of the tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk, a lot of America's self-proclaimed free speech warriors on the right have suddenly become very concerned about hate speech, something that they previously never thought existed. And we have a very prominent one of those, that being Donald Trump. He was speaking with Fox News' Martha McCallum, and suddenly he implied that not only is he concerned about hate speech, but now he thinks maybe even Charlie Kirk would be.
Charlie said, that there was no such thing as hate speech. He obviously, no one anticipated what happened to Charlie, but you have always been in favor of free speech.
Yeah, so Donald Trump is attempting to not only put words into the mouth of someone who just tragically died, but that would directly contradict what that person has said. And I understand that he's Donald Trump, and so he can say literally anything he wants, and MAGA isn't gonna have a problem with it. But I just wanna say, I think that is grotesque. I think who the hell are you to say who the slain, or say what the slain would say about a particular topic, especially when they weren't ambiguous about it. They were super, look at this tweet. Hate speech does not exist legally in America. There's ugly speech, there's gross speech, there's evil speech, and all of it is protected by the First Amendment. Keep America free. Whether you agree with that tweet by Charlie Kirk or not, that is clearly what he believed. And now in swoops Donald Trump to be like, nah, whatever. I wanna do this thing, he'd agree with me. Just take my word for it, he'd agree with me. I think that is grotesque. I look, in my view, and I understand I'm just speaking for myself, I think it's grosser than anything Jimmy Kimmel said, but it's Donald Trump, so I'm sure he'll get away with it. But in any event, we do have a second clip we wanna show you. If we could jump ahead to the fourth video. Donald Trump has been on a tear recently to make it very explicit that just getting rid of Jimmy Kimmel isn't enough. The news apparently isn't allowed to criticize him anymore.
I'm a very strong person for free speech. At the same time, when you have networks where I won an election, like in counties, I guess it's 2,600 to 525. That's called a landslide times 2. When you have that level of popularity or voter support, as I did in the last election, and yet 97 and 94%, different numbers. You see different numbers with different stats. But 97, 94, 95, 96% of the people are against me in the sense of the newscasts are against me. The stories are they said 97% bad. So they gave me 97. They'll take a great story and they'll make it bad. See, I think that's really illegal, personally. When somebody is given 97% of the stories are bad about a person, that's no longer free speech, that's just cheating. And they cheat. And they become really members of the Democrat National Committee.
Yeah, so every single word that he uttered there, and it took so long for him to utter. Like, if you're gonna say something fascistic, can you get to the authoritarian point? You just drag it out like that? He's not strong, least of all on the First Amendment. or probably least of all in terms of his body. Second least of all in the First Amendment, he doesn't believe that the news should be able to criticize him. They can make anything sound bad. Look, I can actually demonstrate it right here. So it was recently revealed through amazing reporting that he dispatched Steve Witkoff, and Steve Witkoff got this guy from the UAE to give $2 billion to his crypto company, and then 10 days after that, they gave the UAE access to all of these incredibly sensitive and powerful chips for doing like AI and stuff. And that seems like the most epic corruption we've ever seen in America. See how I made that sound bad? Oh, sorry, am I cheating? Am I being unfair to Donald Trump? By the way, you notice what he did, kind of a version of the thing that right-wingers always do online? I won X counties to 500. Why are you talking about counties? Why don't you talk about people? Why don't you talk about how you didn't even hit 50% of the popular vote? I mean, if you had a landslide ×2, Joe Biden whooped your ass by like millions of votes more. It's amazing that Fox was able to get through there criticizing a guy who was objectively more popular than you. By the way, only 49% of Republicans as of this morning believe the country is going in the right direction. So at this point, the majority of Republicans don't even support you. Can we report the news now? So anyway, it's super clear that this is not just about late night comedians. He wants an end, not just to jokes, but to reporting. He wants to continue to engage in the most transparent corruption America has ever seen. And he wants news agencies, whether it's TV channels, magazines, newspapers, he wants them to be terrified of action by the federal government, so terrified that they won't actually report on it in the first place. Elliot, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I remember growing up and hearing people talk about, the first half of your life, you're kind of just wanting to accomplish things and get stuff done. And then the second half of your life, and especially toward the end, you start having like some kind of self-reflection and looking back and really thinking about everything in a more holistic way. I feel like if Trump is watching these things and like 97% of the reporting is not what he wants, that is a great opportunity to like slow down and be like, maybe like, I could improve a couple of things. Like the lack of self-awareness on this dude is incredible. And it's like, dude, you're in your golden days, hours potentially. He's not looking good in that video either. And it was painful to listen to him say that. It was like, we can get the words out. You want to pull it out, but they come out in the wrong order, so.
Yeah, Trey?
Man, that clip, like you said, the whole time I almost started like yelling at the thing, like just say it. What are you? Like it will never not astound me, I don't think. Anytime I see him speak, just thinking about the fact that millions of our fellow Americans can see that same thing and be like, truly this guy is a cut above intellectually. Like this is the type of very stable genius that should be running the entire country. Like that'll lay politics and everything else about him aside. Just that by itself.
Yeah.
Just how bad he is at words. How dumb he seems. Like I just don't. I mean, but anyway, as far as this, he's talking about the negative coverage and all that stuff. It's like, it shouldn't be, newspapers shouldn't report things that are untrue or whatever. But like the thing is, you have to understand, to Trump and to MAGA or whatever, the way you determine whether or not something is untrue is by first determining whether or not you like it or it makes you feel good or bad. So like bad news is like, that's just automatically false. If it seems bad about Trump or about MAGA, that means it's false, completely irrespective of whether or not it happened in reality. Yeah. Like that's utterly irrelevant. It's all about how it makes you feel. And if you don't like the way it makes you feel, then it's made up and it's untrue. And it's like they would say the whole time during his like felony trials and stuff and all that, and they'd be like, the Democrats, it's politically motivated. They're, the Justice Department's weaponized. It's like it's a witch hunt, and the whole time it's like, okay, but but what if he did all the stuff, like, did you not like willing to consider that at all? But they don't. It's like, if it's good about him, it's true. If it's bad about him, it's bad, or it's false. I mean, and that's, so, they're all in lockstep on that. And we all continue to live in this two alternate realities, right? But yet the same country with the same government. So
yeah, you could sort of you can tell in the word choice that he uses there. Like he said that they're cheating, not that they're inaccurate. It's like it's mean. And he said in a couple of these interviews, he said it's 97% bad publicity, not that it's negative. It's all just about the image and all that. And in terms of his ability to express himself, I don't know if it's just that he's getting older. I know some people suspect that it's like dementia. I'm thinking maybe the fluid that's gathering in his ankles is supposed to be lubricating his neurons or something. Like maybe it's an issue of water distribution, but regardless, I think he's noticeably lost a step. In any event, why don't we talk about one more topic to close out this hour? Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is apparently now weighing a decision that could change the future for not only herself, but for the Democratic Party, perhaps even for the nation, which is, what should she run for in 2028, if not again for the House? And there's a lot of reporting from inside of her team that seems to indicate that it's either gonna be Senate or President and not continuing on in the House of Representatives. They're apparently positioning her to run for President or Senate in 2028. That, of course, would be when Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer would be up for re-election, so she could primary him. And some of the early polling from Data of Progress has her up by like 19 points over Chuck Schumer already. Granted, it's years away. That's years more where Chuck Schumer could show the sort of vim and verve and fight that he's been demonstrating all year, and that could certainly win over some people. But in any event, some close allies believe that even if she didn't think she could win, she may want to run for the White House to ensure that the Democratic Party's progressive wing is represented in the primary, like Bernie Sanders did in 2016 against Hillary Clinton. A longtime Sanders aide who spoke to Axios is actually pretty confident about her chances, saying she has a supporter base that, in many ways, has a larger potential width than Bernie's. She has been in the glare of the spotlight from day one and has the national campaigning experience a lot of other potential candidates are now trying to get. It would be the height of arrogance to assume she couldn't win the 2028 nomination. Now, it will, of course, even if she decides to run, it's not gonna happen until, I don't know, a quarter of the way, half of the way through 2027. So we have some time before that becomes like transparent, but she's been making a lot of the sort of moves that you would make if you wanted to set yourself up for it. She has, of course, been touring around the country, in many cases with Bernie Sanders. She's been spending a ton of money, raising her profile on social media, her network of small dollar donors. And all of that is the sort of thing you'd want to do if you were eventually going to run. So Trey, starting with you, do you have any sort of prediction about what you could see her doing? Do you have anything that you want her to do in terms of 2028?
Yeah, prediction, I don't know. I'd sooner lasso the moon. Whatever I predict would end up being wrong probably. But as far as like what I want, obviously, huge fan. I'll support her and whatever. She's a star, rising star. So it's like, I don't know, I go back and forth. Like, I would like to, nothing's a lock, but I would like to say that the Senate feels like it should be a lock. You know, she's still very young and doing that and taking it a little more slowly and building, the profile even further. Feels like, it's obviously the less aggressive move. And then also, but like, if you want to go straight forward, and I respect the notion of trying to do what Bernie did, trying to drag the party kicking and screaming to the left, even if it doesn't work out for her personally. I certainly respect that. I'm a little skeptical and cynical still right now in the wake of this last election. Again, I love her. I think she's great, but that, a woman running in general in America still, like, I want to see it happen, but like I said, maybe her star needs to build a little bit more first. But whatever she does, if she runs in it as a prime, like, I'll vote for her. I can pretty much tell you that now. But also, I just want to see it be a legitimate primary with no shenanigans, right? And for someone to emerge as like, a candidate with a real chance at the end of it, and no tomfoolery by the DNC and any of that stuff. But it might be a tall order, but yeah, that's where I'm at on the whole thing.
Elliot?
Yeah, I mean, prediction-wise, I agree. I really have no idea. I also adore her. I think she's great. There's things I disagree with, but it would, just to feel something, it would be nice if she ran, I think, in the primaries and had like a spark of hope. And then once that gets extinguished, then we can, see whatever happens in the general. But like, I think it'll depend too on what the other side ends up doing, whoever they end up running. If it ends up being something like a JD Vance situation, which I don't even know if that would be something that he would hope for. I imagine it is. But like, I could see her just in a battle of charisma and absolutely winning. So I hope it does happen, but honestly, whatever she thinks is best, because if it needs to be 4 years to increase the odds, excellent.
Yeah, she still is incredibly young. I mean, this would literally be the first opportunity that she would have to run. Joe Biden, remember, ran and then ended up becoming president like 40 years later. So anything I suppose could happen. I would prefer not to wait that long. I don't think, and you can attest to this looking at me, that I'll make it that long. So I'd prefer if she did it sooner rather than later. I'll support, like you guys said, I'll support her if she runs. I'm ready to support, I'm ready to endorse. Honestly, you need a surrogate, you'll throw me on cable news or whatever. But no, I'm a big fan of her. I have the same sort of concerns, I guess, that you do, Trey. There's just so many issues with our country that are so terrible. And I really think that we just need someone to break through to finally end that spell. And I think it would be wonderful if she was the person to do that. I do know that if she were to run, I think that it's likely that the media would try to do to her exactly what they did to Bernie Sanders, which is a combination of icing her out, trying to make sure that their audience does not hear her message because they know how popular it would be. Spreading wild, theories about her, calling her a socialist, a communist, all that stuff. That said, they're gonna do that to any progressive. So you gotta know that. And she's not waiting until the last minute to start to introduce herself to America to try to preempt their efforts to define who she is. She's out there doing that in massive rallies pretty much every weekend. And so there would be lots of challenges. And by the way, after how bad this year has been, and how the next 3 years after that could be really bad, really dark, it's entirely possible that people just want to do what they did last time around, which is let's just go with like something that seems typical, like a Joe Biden, like a Gavin Newsom, just something simple, not scary. And so I have my fears about that too. But with the time we have remaining, any final thoughts?
No, I totally agree. Please just not Newsom, for God's sake, anything, please. We'll keep him, that would be it.
But the memes, you don't like the memes, the social media work over there?
I like them. I do like the memes. I am a sucker for memes.
Worthy?
You got me, Trey.
Nah, I'm kidding. I don't. Yeah.
Make him vice president. He could be the bulldog then.
Yeah. No. The old guard Democrats or whatever standing in the way of progress is just as American as apple pie at this point. Yep. So I kind of expect it to happen too. But it'd be nice if it didn't for once.
Yeah, I just feel like maybe someday we could have a try, like ever. Once we could, like one time we could try. I mean, you guys have had all of them, always. I mean, Obama, when he ran, he seemed pretty progressive. So it seemed like we were getting our try then. It didn't work out necessarily 100%. I still look back on those days with a lot of fondness now, considering the darkness we're in. But I'd just like to get one before the Pop-Tarts finally catch up to me, okay? Just give me one. Anyway, with that said, Trey, as always, a pleasure to have you here. Where can people see more of your work?
So it's just Trey Crowder on your preferred social media platform, TRAE Crowder. But importantly, TreyCrowder.com for all my tour dates. Do a lot of touring, so check it out. If I'm going to be near you, get a ticket, come see me, please. It's fun. But yeah, go ahead. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, and Elliot, great to have you here in studio.
Thank you, yeah, thanks for having me. You can check me out at youtube.com/rebelhq as well, or substack.com/Elliot Morgan, or anything with Elliot Morgan on it. Thanks, y'all.
There you go. Everyone, stick around after this break because we got a second hour coming up. Michael Shore will be here, John Fugelsang, Wosny Lambre. I don't think that's a power panel that's ever been together. It should be a lot of fun, especially considering the news out there. So stick around, we'll be back after this.
All right, so you got a message for John Idarola?
Tell him to be nice to me.
Our audience has given us everything, so we couldn't be more connected. When we first started, people would start giving us directions and say, okay, the mics are too large, move them. Turn them into lav mics. I mean, they were incredible. And then one guy walked in and gave us a really expensive switcher and said, you guys need this, and walked out. Okay, it's amazing. They helped us build a studio. They did a $2 million funding campaign for us. And so they really are us. We do this show together to the point where some of our hosts are even former listeners. So when we say that the audience is part of TYT, we really mean it.
I think what the audience also appreciates is especially if they're members, they really get an inside look into who we are, our personal lives, what drives and motivates us. It goes beyond just storytelling. I think that What we do is allow our viewers and our listeners into our daily lives, and we give them kind of like this inside look into everything that we're passionate about and why it is that we're doing what we're doing, right? Like the motivation behind what we're doing, I think is important for our audience to know, and we're not shy about sharing that with them. And it's different from what people typically see in legacy media outlets where everything is kind of dry and robotic and there's really no personality or authenticity that comes along with it. Oftentimes when we're doing the show, I don't really think of it as me telling them stories. I think of it as us having a mutual respect and conversation with one another. And as I said earlier, I mean, not only do I feel that through the work I do, I'm informing our audience, but they inform me oftentimes as well. You know, they'll pitch stories to us. They'll tell us, you know, a certain perspective or angle to a story that we might have missed. And I love it.
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now, these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like tyt.com/join, and enjoy this.
You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey, hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitsing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny Pie. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Jank. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, AKA Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
And this is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. I'll refer to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
Your all-time favorite president, me.
You're smoking some of the best dope God ever put breath in. You're Willie Nelson high.
Hey, drop it. I should have had something prepared, like a late night talk show host. I forgot that you have to actually have a clever rejoinder to the actual dropping it thing and not just say drop it. I'm Michael Schur here at TYT. Welcome to the show. I'm joined today by John Fugelsang. And if you say that John Fugelsang, you mean the author of Separation of Church and Hate, the Sane Person's Guide to Taking Back the Bible from Fundamentalists, Fascists, and Flock-Fleecing Frauds. Say that 10 times fast. Yes, it is that John Fugelsang, an old friend, and Wazi Lambre, who is joining us as well and is a big part of the Young Turks. He also writes for The Ringer, and one day he'll write a hockey story. I promise you. Right, Waz? Just promise.
Maybe, you never know.
All right, John, how are you, old friend?
I'm really glad to see you, and I'm really happy that we're finally going to be striking fear into the heart of the Antifa organization as soon as we find their address and know who's in it. So
You're talking about the terrorist organization Antifa, John?
Yes, the organized organization called Antifa that has members at offices and presumably an app. So I can't wait. It's exciting.
Just write in and they'll write you right back because you know who they are and you know where to find them. All right. Well,
I can feel the freedom right now.
We have plenty to talk about, and Donald Trump has had plenty to say, which makes this job kind of easy, but also kind of queasy. We will get to that, but let's begin with these poll numbers and what's happening to Donald Trump. Take a look at this.
We do see polling that doesn't poll well in the economy. The recent Fox polling said 52% say the economy is worse under this administration. You've got unemployment at the highest rate in 4 years. Groceries made a big jump in the last term. So how is that? You're looking forward with these plans that you just talked about. When will people feel that, Mr.
Well,
Trump?
when the factories start opening. I mean, right now we're building them. And, Fox polling, I have to tell you, I've told you before, it's the worst polling I've ever had. Fox polling, I've told Rupert Murdoch, go get yourself a new pollster because he stinks. And this is for years now.
Right. When you don't like the numbers, what do? Fire them. We saw that with the jobs. Trump returned to his tried and true excuses yesterday when Martha McCallum confronted him with those less than flattering poll numbers. According to him, the issue is not his handling of the economy. The real issue is Fox News's polling abilities. So he says they got to fire him. I told Rupert they got to fire him. Unfortunately for Donald Trump, Fox News is far from the only outlet with pretty terrible numbers for the president. A Washington Post Ipsos poll just found that 64% of Americans disapprove of how Trump is handling tariffs, while 59% disapprove of how he is handling the economy. Those inherent baked-in numbers of about 40% are always remarkable to me. Do you approve or disapprove of the way Trump is handling each of the following? Tariffs on important goods, 34 approve, 64 disapprove. The situation involving Russia and Ukraine, 38 to 60. I don't know where the 38 is. What are you approving of? And then the economy, 40 to 59, as we see there. Additionally, more than 2/3 of Americans describe the state of the economy as not so good or poor. An AP NORC poll found that 60% of adults think Trump has gone too far in imposing new tariffs on other countries. So you see there, gone too far, 60, about right, 34, and not far enough, 5. So that, again, 34 and 5, you have that 39. That's pretty, things are fine. But Trump, of course, has an excuse for everything, and this is no different. It basically boils down to the fact that he thinks Americans are too dumb to understand his genius. Listen.
With regard to people's feeling about the economy and the tariffs, and some polls show that people are concerned about the tariffs as well.
That's only because they don't understand the word tariff. I mean, look, again, we have all this money, trillions of dollars pouring into our country only because of the tariffs. I mean, I'd like to say because of November 5th, the election, but it's really because of the tariffs. We have right now, when you look at our numbers, the investment that's being made in our country is, again, Biden's at $250 billion, right, and we're at 17 trillion.
Yeah, that's a big number.
Nobody's ever heard of a number like that.
Well, no one's ever heard of a number like that because it isn't really the number. It's that $17 trillion figure, or 17 trillion figure is a wild overestimate. But it's not just economic issues that people aren't happy with. The Washington Post Ipsos survey finds that Americans disapprove of Trump's performance on crime by a 10 percentage point margin and oppose him ordering the National Guard to other cities by a 4-point margin. And overall, Trump is what they say underwater. 56% of Americans disapprove of the way he's handling his job, while 43% approve, a negative 13-point margin. So you can see it right there. September, 43% to 56%. Those numbers have stayed relatively solid throughout his presidency. Hard to believe he only took office in February. We are, what is it? Do some math for me, John. About 8% into this. 8 months into this. That's what it sounds like.
We're 9 months in.
9 months.
So children that were conceived by drunk, depressed couples on inauguration night are being born into a hellscape around this week.
Well, we look forward to welcoming those babies. I'm going to get to you guys in 1 second. Let me just give you one more poll. The AP NRC numbers were even more bleak for these poor babies. Overall, 39% of adults approve of the way Trump is handling his job as president, and 60% disapprove. Those are pretty hard, consistent numbers. Those are numbers that haven't really wavered, Waz. What do you make of all of this and what the president's options are?
It's kind of remarkable, honestly, how similar the Trump situation is to Biden in terms of the messaging out of the White House is, oh, you guys are just too dumb to realize how great the economy is. Look at our GDP growth. Look at our stock market. Look how great the economy is going for everyone. When the reality is most Americans don't own stock, don't have a 401k. They're not realizing those gains in our economy. And yet they still go to the pump and see a gas situation that's hard for them. They go to the grocery store, go try to buy a steak. I promise you, the numbers will shock you at the grocery store. They know that housing prices steadily continue to go up. And the same if you want to go out and buy a car, if you want to go out and rent an apartment, you name it, like the cost of living, childcare, you name it, it's not getting better. So it doesn't matter what Joe Biden says. Out of his economic people say, oh, you guys just don't get how great and hot the economy is. It doesn't matter what Trump says when he fires the jobs reports guy or he goes on Fox News and he gaslights the country. It doesn't matter. Like, people are gonna go out and notice that materially their lives are getting worse. And then that's before we even talk about wage stagnation, which is a 50-year problem in this country. So Trump can go out and do his normal bluster, but it's not going to work.
Well, here's the thing, John, in listening to Waz and what he's saying about this and this bluster that we know, Waz says it's not going to work. It did work in last November. It worked, and I was standing next to people who said to me, my eggs are too expensive. Mind you, people who just spent like $300 at the tents behind them to buy MAGA scarves and hats and buttons and all of that, but their egg prices were too high and they felt like they were paying too much in gas. So I think Waz is right. The bluster's not going to work. It doesn't have to. He's not running for re-election again, but there is an election next year. How does this square for Trump? How is he able to change this narrative when he's telling people they don't understand the economy? This is what it is right now. What happens now?
Joe Biden had the same problem Barack Obama had, a recovery that was real on paper, but it didn't translate into the pocketbooks of normal people. And America for 30 years has been turning into this reality show I call food, medicine, rent, pick two. But the reality was under Biden, who did massive investment, the first 2 years of Joe Biden's presidency, we'll study someday to see how you actually do it FDR style. We got to have the lowest rate of childhood poverty in history in 2021, which shows we can do that if we want to. Government policies got us there. But Donald Trump has blown everything he inherited from Fred Trump, Barack Obama, and now Joe Biden. That's 3 inheritances in a row. Don't forget, as unsatisfying as it was, America was handling inflation better than every other capitalist society in the G8. I mean, we really were the envy of the world, as crappy as it was. And now 2/3 of the Americans say the economy is poor. It's only 9 months, or not so good, which is how Melania describes the marriage. 70%, Mr. Schur, say Donald Trump's tariffs make things more expensive. And the other 30% are still trying to figure out why Big Macs cost $19 now. He can't do anything. It's too locked in. And these Republicans, like brave little Ted Cruz, are beginning to do the dance they're gonna have to do of putting space between themselves and this guy just enough, because they all know that the tariff problem is not gonna get better. The Fed has reported that consumer spending has flatlined or dropped, and prices have gone up in every single sector. Add on to that Epstein's not going away. So if I was Jimmy Fallon, I'd lock the doors right now, because this guy's going to need a lot of scapegoating, and Hunter Biden will pay.
Yeah, there's no question. I couldn't.
But again, the Republicans are. I'm sorry, Michael. But the Republicans are terrified because they know that Trump's not going to be on the ballot this year. And there's folks that come in from the mountains, or in from the woods, or down from the hills, or in from the swamp when Mr. Trump from the TV's on the ballot. Those folks didn't come in 2018.
Of course they didn't.
They didn't come in 2022. And the midterm's not going to have the riz to get those people. The ones who think climate change is fake, but pro wrestling is real and vaccines make you gay. A lot of them are not going to bother showing up.
Right, that's true. And even if the maxim is, well, Trump is always on the ballot, he's not on the ballot unless he's on the ballot. So some of his ideas may be, and some of his passions may be, and some of the people that came out to see him, maybe, I've said it before, I feel like that there's a part of Donald Trump which is like Tiger Woods. I'll watch golf if Tiger Woods is golfing. I will not watch golf if Tiger Woods isn't golfing. And it's not because I have other things to do with my day and I'll watch, other sports. He's the star that gets me out, and Donald Trump is the star that gets a lot of his voters and supporters out. John, I want to ask you this. One of the numbers that was kind of a back number here that we didn't talk about so much, because we talked about the economy and those favorable and unfavorable numbers, was 10%. He's underwater 10% on crime, right?
On crime. His favorite issue is like his best subject at school was detention. You're underwater on crime.
Exactly, but this is what I'm saying.
How many black people does this guy have to abuse to satisfy
his policy, though? All these policies of going to the cities and flexing the muscle of the military in our cities and picking up immigrants, that's to deflect, in my estimation, from really poor economic numbers and saying, all right, this is the winning strategy. Crime's the winning strategy. He's not even winning with that, is he?
Yeah, but look how Pritzker made him back down from Chicago, and now he's going to go pick on Memphis because it's actually a blacker city, but they do have a Republican attorney general who will let him do this cosplay and let him take Marines and National Guard troopers like away from their jobs and their families and their local economies, so they can be like the troops in DC and do yard work while wearing camouflage with orange vests. The camouflage with orange vests on top really is the metaphor for this strategy of this entire administration, man.
Yeah.
What we saw in DC.
It's not even that good a look.
I mean,
it's not even that good a look.
33% disapproves. This whole administration is like Jägermeister already. They're regretting it the next morning. And these idiots, he's going to be doing everything he can do. But look how scared they are. They're cheating in Texas 15 months early. That's how scared they are. And the prices are going up in Walmart. And Donald Trump is tap dancing to keep the 32% that brought him happy. He's not even trying to reach beyond his original base.
No, he's not. And what he's trying to do to keep the Congress, obviously, is to change the rules. And he's got his deputies to do it in Texas. Waz, I want to talk about something that John brought up very quickly because we've got a lot to cover today. But he said, John was talking about how on paper this economy was great. Biden's economy is great. You were saying paper doesn't matter.
Better than others.
It matters what's at home, right? Yeah, I'm sorry. The Biden economy is great. And
in terms of recovering from COVID is all I'm saying.
No, understood. But I'm talking about, I agree with what you're saying, John. I think it's absolutely true. I mean, it's actually irrefutable. It's true. But how do you drive that home? How do you drive that home in an election? And what Waz is saying, that all the prices are too high. I don't own stocks. Most people don't own stocks, et cetera, et cetera. Where's the way out of that?
Well, I mean, it would be wealth redistribution. It'd be a radical change to the status quo. But that's not on the table for either party. And that's what I meant, honestly, by it's not gonna work. My guy, Daniel Bessner, has a theory about, our current political moment, in that, like, if nobody's willing to actually tackle the paradigm that exists head on, we're just gonna have these fluctuations where incumbents just keep getting kicked out. I don't think in 2028, Trump is gonna create some fantastic economy and some fantastic new American century that everybody's so happy, and a JD goofy ass Vance is gonna come in and ride that wave to the presidency. I just don't see that happening for them. And I think for all of the credit that Trump gets for dominating the last 10 years of American politics, he's just dominating discourse. Nothing's changed, right? Like, Wall Street still owns the economy. The tech sector still owns the economy. We're still beholden to the same people we're beholden to. Like, the people who run and own the country still own it, and even more so. And I don't think that's gonna produce some results where even, people that are on the fringes of loving or supporting Trump to the point that they'll go out and vote for him are going to be super enthusiastic about him throughout his presidency.
Yeah, I agree. And you brought up, John brought up Ted Cruz, and you're starting to see the fissures that naturally happen. You brought up J.D. Vance. I think the passing of Charlie Kirk really, tragic and all on the political side hurts J.D. Vance immensely because it emboldens others to go against MAGA in whatever ways they want to. Because if J.D. Vance is the standard bearer of MAGA, I can promise you that Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley and Marco Rubio and Tom Cotton and any other Republican who wants to be president will take that in any day of the week. They would love to run against J.D. Vance, especially if he is weakened without having all of what Charlie Kirk brought to the table there. So I think it's interesting.
I think Tucker Carlson's going to do more against them right now on this issue than Charlie Kirk's murder.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree, but it really takes a lot of infrastructure out of J.D. Vance's background. So anyway, we have.
Isn't it going to be joyful watching MAGA tear that guy apart with his little eyeliner, his fuzzy fingers? Oh, they can't wait. They can't wait to tell him, no, you're not captain now.
I'm so glad I didn't wear eyeliner today.
This guy is so hated. I heard the couch made him go sleep on the bed. That's how hated he is.
That's what's so great about John is like your face hurts when you're done with the show. I'm Michael Schur. I'm with Wosnia Lambre and John Fugelsang. We'll be back on TYT. Back with your comments here on TYT. Old Dirty Pastor Fugelsang, oh snap, bringing the old school alumni. Look at that. Then somebody said, oh my God, this is just read a book, appropriately said. Oh my God, I am reading this book right now. That book, Separation of Church and Hate, that's John Fugelsang's book.
My New York Times bestseller book, I'll have you know. I've got to say that every day for the rest of my life now and be insufferable.
Yeah, that's true. And already I find it burdensome. Oh my God, I'm reading this book right now. Thank you, TYT, for having John. Loving this book, so good. Just read a book. Do you know that that is a New York Times best-selling book? Ember of Hope, Woz, my two favorite panelists in one day. It's the small things we hold on to. One comment that I will read about me, because I don't like reading comments about me, but this is funny. That flubbed drop it was 100% pure Michael Schur. You know, I didn't flub. Well, I guess I flubbed it. I wasn't really ready for it, but I think I also rescued it, which is really what I'm happy about. There are lots of comments, man. I don't know. So I'm supposed to read comments. Oh, here we go. Twitch. This is off of Twitch. Green New Deal Dragon, the Wizard of Woz, and the Shuricane. Am I not in Kansas anymore? The Wizard of Woz. Nice. I like that. Nice. And now new YouTube members, new members, the Ash Dragon and Sack K. Thank you for being members. And Diddy D. There's a good chance I might buy John Fugelsang's book after this. I'm in the middle of moving, but I don't care. How about that? We're here to sell books. And Rage Rock for Now says, nice power panel. I couldn't agree more. Now we're into the super chat. I don't see super chat. I don't really know what super chat is, but I love saying it. Fellas, they're happy to see you, and I think that's good. We got Purple Orchid. I love John Fugelsang. They want to know if you have Eclectic Miscellanea wants to know if you have an official TYT nickname yet, John. Do you have one?
No, I've only been doing shows with you guys for about 15 years, so I'm still waiting to.
So, all right. So
I've only been guest hosting since 2011, I think, for shows. So I'm a long way from my wing.
It takes a little while. Write another bestseller.
I know. Listen, it's the cult. I understand.
That's fine.
I thought the effigy of Cenk was enough, but he wasn't satisfied.
He wasn't satisfied. We'll be back.
Some of the best dope God ever put breath in. You're Willie Nelson High.
We've got more to talk about. Michael Schur, Wosny Lambre, John Fugelsang. But first, this.
All right, you won that debate. Hold on, but we haven't won anything yet, right? So we got to take this energy, we got to take this momentum, and she showed everyone, especially Donald Trump, what a real leader is. And now we're going to take this momentum for the next 55 days so I can call my wife the next president of the United States, Kamala Harris!
There's Doug Emhoff, and we are talking about Kamala Harris because Kamala Harris' new book is coming out, and I don't want to see it push any books off of the, well, I don't care which books it pushes off, but I don't want it to push off Separation of Church and Hate, which is John Fugelsang's book. Which
Basically the same book as well. Mine is all backstabbing at people who gave me jobs, so I understand.
I know some of those people too, John, so it'll be discomforting to read that. But former Vice President Kamala Harris is giving more insight now into what she had to deal with on the campaign trail in 2024. And this time, she's revealing what happened after her debate and at her debate with Donald Trump. Harris has already divulged in excerpts given to The Atlantic that she didn't feel supported by the Biden administration after Biden left the race. And now we're learning that on debate night, Biden's pep talk was anything but that. According to the New York Times, minutes before Harris went on the stage, she received a call from President Biden. He relayed that his brother told him that she was bad-mouthing him and that several power brokers in Philadelphia were threatening not to support her because of it. Biden went on to insist that his own disastrous debate performance had not hurt him with voters and that he had beaten Trump, which he'd done in 2016. Harris went on to say, I just couldn't understand why he would call me right now and make it all about himself, distracting me with worry about hostile power brokers in the biggest city of the most important swing state. It didn't help that the day after the debate was the day Biden donned a Trump hat while visiting the Shanksville Volunteer Fire Department in Pennsylvania. Take a look.
There you go.
Now, that was kind of awkward. The only one who actually said nice things to her, well, you guessed it, Donald Trump. In private, of course. After Trump's second assassination attempt, Kamala Harris spoke to Trump on the phone. You've done a great job, said Trump. You really have. My only problem is it makes it very hard for me to be angry at you. It's like, what am I going to do? How do I say bad things about you now? Harris then said, well, then don't, Trump. I'm going to tone it down. I will. You're going to see. Harris knew he wasn't being genuine. He even said Ivanka was, quote, a big fan. Harris said he's a con man. He's really good at it. I'd readied myself for a phone conversation with Mr. Hyde, but Dr. Jekyll had picked up the call. And even in a second phone call after Trump had won, he put on the act after she asked him to work together to bring the country together. I'm going to be so nice and respectful, said Donald Trump. You are a tough, smart customer, and I say that with great respect, and you also have a beautiful name. I got used to that name. It's Kamala. So that's an excerpt from the book. He said her name correctly. She said in that moment she knew her plea was in fact a lost cause. She ends the book wondering if there's even a possibility to bring change at this point. Finally, she said, I'll be with the people in towns and communities where I can listen to their ideas on how we rebuild trust, empathy, and a government worthy of the ideals of this country. We'd planned for everything, it seemed, except the actual result, which is, something was that people say when they lose elections all the time. I think that when you read these postmortems on election, people are saying, who cares about this book? Who wants to read a book? I think it's fascinating. It was a truncated candidacy. It was the most unusual of our lifetime. And knowing what happened and what was behind the scenes of a president who was still in office and didn't really want to leave, and his vice president running, I don't think Al Gore would glow about the support he got from Bill Clinton's people. George Bush certainly didn't get support from Ronald Reagan's people. So I think this is a familiar theme, but in such an unusual election. What do you make of this tour, Waz?
I mean, she's kind of a man or a woman without a country, in the sense that there's never really been a Kamala Harris constituency. When she ran in the primary in 2020, she was polling in the low single digits. Like, nobody cared for this lady. She got picked, and let's face it, Joe Biden came out and said, I wanted to pick a black woman. So she got picked for that. It wasn't because she was bringing some extraordinary constituency or fan group or affinity group or any of that. Joe Biden treated her as checking a box. All his people did in places like Axios and Politico throughout his presidency was just dog her, just be like, she's useless. We can't put her on anything. She's an incompetent. You can't be serious. Why would we get out the way for this? All of that stuff. And then, she kind of gets thrust into this moment with basically no time left on the clock. And I think she ran a bad campaign, but I think all things considered, I don't think she was completely and wholly a disaster. I just think once those consultants and the people who run the DNC get their hooks into you, they kind of got bad instincts, and her campaign followed some bad advice. And now it's like, how do you even put lipstick on that pig? I guess you can always try, but I think the ultimate sign that she's kind of nowhere with any of this is that, first it was floated, yeah, I'm gearing up for 2028. I'm coming back for you guys. I'm coming back to save the country. Then it was like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna take Gavin Newsom's seat because I'm a California person and blah, blah, blah. All of that is zip, gone, done. She's done.
Well, she might be. I don't know that I agree with everything you said, Waz, other than, the dynamics that were in play. I actually, and people can disagree all the time, but I didn't think she ran a bad campaign, considering what she had to work with, considering what she had going on in the White House.
I think running around with Dick Cheney's kid is a bad idea. That kind of stuff was weird to me.
It is weird, but it's a good play coming out of January 6th and coming out of trying
doing it one day. Doing it one day is good.
Right. Yeah, it is. So I mean,
one appearance for those things.
I don't know. Other than, I covered it for I guess I was on the road for about 7 or 8 days in 2020, was it? Yeah, when the time period you were talking about was. And I was unimpressed, and the people that were around me were unimpressed, meaning not my colleagues, but people and peers, the people that were going to these events in Iowa and South Carolina. And I remember one woman saying that she didn't want to vote for him because she didn't, was an African-American woman and outside of Charleston who said, she doesn't feel like a sister to me, which I thought was really interesting. But again, that was part of the constituency that she was brought on to deliver in a way. And if you can be so naive as to think that one African-American woman can bring, millions of African-American votes. But that said, I didn't think the campaign was so bad considering where it was, right? Considering what was handed to it. John, what is first of all, your take on what I said and what was said, but also what do you think her purpose is now, or her goals are now?
Wrecking her political future appears to be the goal behind a book of gossip, rather than being on the streets, leading. People don't care about how she and Joe Biden didn't get along. They care about how expensive everything is. They care that there's censorship. They care that our president is blowing people up and vaporizing boats of civilians with no evidence or proof. No one cares. Kamala Harris, even by calling this book 100 Days, it's drawing attention in the wrong way. The whole book is celebration of failure. Here's the deal. She was in this race for 100 days, right? Against the most famous man on earth. And she got the third highest vote total of anyone ever to run for president in the history of this country. Kamala Harris got more votes for president than Ronald Reagan got both times, than Bill Clinton got both times, and then then Barack Obama got both times, more than George W. Bush got both times. And they're walking around in a funeral shroud, acting like she's this great humiliation to them. The majority of people who have showed up to vote in 2016, 2020, and 2024 have voted against Trump. He's never cracked 50%. And yet they act like it's a mandate. And when you go polling people on the issues, on issue after issue, from paid family leave to decriminalize weed, women's reproductive freedoms, tax billionaires, Medicaid covering vision, hearing, and dental, the overwhelming majority of the American people agree with the Democratic platform. And yet the party can't stop serving this media narrative that there are these bunch of losers lost in the wilderness. Look, we'll find out someday what kind of I'm trying to choose my language politely here, but what kind of malfeasance might have gone on with certain, I mean, there's a lot of bomb threats called into a lot of black voting centers that particular day. But Kamala Harris doesn't need to be doing this. Let Jake Tapper do this. Let Jake Tapper alienate everybody. Kamala Harris needs to be doing what Simon Moya Smith calls putting your body in the movement. Get out there and lead a protest. Let's see. Bonnie Watson-Coleman was on my show this week. She's 80. Yeah. She got shoved by ICE outside a concentration camp in Newark. I want to see Kamala Harris get shoved because she's fighting so hard for working people, rather than see her write a glamorous tome on her one-way ticket to Hillary Clinton Island. She has so much to offer. And what she's doing right now, crapping on Biden and being gossipy and offering excuses, who even wants to read that? No one cares.
Wait, John, I got a question. Can she do any of that from Martha's Vineyard?
Exactly.
Then she might be into the idea.
Exactly. I mean, like, I wanted to see Hillary Clinton at the Women's March in 2017. Get arrested, man. Bonnie Watson-Coleman's 80. And she's getting arrested and shoved by ICE. That's what they want to see.
And she beat cancer. And Bonnie Watson-Coleman beat cancer as well. I mean, she's a tough woman.
And the Democrats who are willing to put their body in the movement, look at how well Newsom has learned how to read the room after his Dancing with Fascists reality show. Look at Pritzker. The Democrats that bring the fight to them, the ones that promise hands-on Bibles in January of 2027 and accountability, they're going to clean up in the fundraising, which might be the thing this party cares about most.
Yeah, that's true. And look, we can disagree and sort of agree at the same time here. I'm just kind of a dork. I'm a nerd, and I don't want to hear it. I like hearing about. I want to hear it. I like hearing about campaigns. I like hearing about it from the candidates. I always think these books have a purpose.
I'm going to try to save the dying patient instead of pick over the corpse of the last one.
Yeah, yeah, I understand. I mean, I think both can be done. I don't think both. I will probably not read this book, but I feel enriched by its excerpting because it gets me a little bit of knowledge where I didn't have.
I don't know, man. Before. Making Democrats like their own Democrats less. I don't see the strategy, and I don't know what she expects this to lead to for her.
Well, I don't think that's what I was asking you, and I don't think anything. I mean, I agree with Waz.
I mean, she probably got a nice advance.
Yeah, she did. Yeah. But I mean, also, like, you don't see losing candidates most of the time. I guess Bernie Sanders the exception, out getting arrested and pushing people aside. People who got the nomination generally recede. Michael Dukakis taught school. Mitt Romney ran for the Senate. Hillary Clinton.
But if she wants to be a leader in the party, she's not going to do it.
Well, I don't think she wants to be a leader in the party anymore. I think Waz is right. She can't run for governor. She can't run for president. As long as Gavin Newsom's around, she's not going to be able to raise money in the state of California. So I don't think her ambitions run into the world of politics that much.
Maybe she'll get a deal with Netflix to produce mediocre documentaries.
Right, or she can sell.
Bernard Rustin was a good movie. That was a good movie. Come on.
It's Bayard. Bayard Rustin was a good movie, actually. I love that movie. Yeah, it was.
I'll defend that one.
Yeah, that was.
That's a very
I agree. Joke. That was a good one. But it's not like people are walking around the street talking about who Bayard Rustin was. It didn't catch on.
I feel like Kamala Harris has a lot to offer. She has a lot to offer the progressive movement if she wants to. But maybe she has other goals than saving democracy.
Okay, but if she has a lot to offer the progressive movement, do you think the progressive movement would accept what Kamala Harris has to offer, regardless of what it is?
Progressive movement's not a monolith, man. You know this. It's going to take everybody giving everything. It's going to take Cory Booker having his goofy little fake filibusters. It's going to take this protest and that movie and South Park doing this. It's going to take all hands, man.
Okay.
It's going to take more Liz Cheney's coming over. We're going to have to get in bed with a lot of people we don't like to stop these idiots.
Yeah, it worked with some of those people, Woz. It definitely didn't work with Liz Cheney. It may have worked a little bit with Joe Walsh.
Mark Cuban. I mean, it was
one day with Liz Cheney. One day, and that's all we needed. Then move on.
Right. Well, Liz Cheney was sticking around. She had no place else to go to because she didn't have a home either.
Cabinet position, and they vastly overestimated her popularity. I mean, she can get arrested in Wyoming.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's true. Yeah. They don't love her even in her home state. We will be back with more TYT after this. Back on TYT and back with your comments. Benjamin says, I like Michael reading this comment. So Michael will continue to read these comments. Probably one of the best parts of TYT, this is from Panic on Funkatron. Probably one of the best parts of TYT is the variety of hosts. You don't get the same exact show or same exact opinions, but honest progressive commentary. Yeah, I would agree. That's what's been cultivated here. Don Data Dragon says, I want Kamala to release that call. An 81-year-old man being your biggest op is hilarious. Lou B. Harris's book came out just in time to function as the headstone on her former career. Ouch, ouch. But I guess, yeah, ding. I guess I'm one of the three of us. I'm the Judge Katsas, I guess, from the other day. That's too deep. Who disagrees with this stuff? But I guess people kind of do agree. Fugal Force has been suggested as a name for John Fugelsang as a TYT nickname. Cherche Laniosis, Plastic Brick Dragon says, well, I guess with John being an author, Pendragon, there's this thing, this dragon thing.
Very nice.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yep,
that's for the guys who don't want to get laid at the Renaissance Fair. You do that one.
Right. But who goes to a Renaissance Fair if they do is another question, John. Twitch subscriptions here. If you have Amazon Prime, you have a free subscription every month. Go to tyt.com/prime to learn how. The only person who doesn't know how tariffs work is Trump, says ProBite. Ryu Rai, can Trump send the Marines to my area? I'll barbecue some food for them if they do my yard work. And then Green New Deal Dragon says, Kamala lost because she supported the genocide in Gaza and the failures of Fossil Joe. I don't agree with that. I agree that she didn't need to do that, but I don't think that's why she lost. But that
didn't help.
It probably did not help.
It might be why she lost Michigan. Might be why she lost Michigan.
Yeah, I think that's an overplay. But again, it might be. It certainly contributed to it. There's no question. And then let's see, War Dragon. The book is literally her saying everybody is to blame except me and my choice to side with wealthy donors. That's one take that you couldn't really argue. We Dieter 72 says, or We Dieter, I don't know, but it does say Dieter too. John Fugelsang, woohoo, caught you on Daily Beans this morning. How about that? You're two-timing us, Fugelsang. And then super chat comments from Gargoyle Dragon giving $4.99. Thank you so much for the support and the donation from Iowa. Republican Congress and governor are talking to China to save corporate farms. How long until Trump starts calling them commie traitors who hate Kirk? Yeah, that's a problem, especially when Terry Branstad, your former governor, was then ambassador to where? China. We'll be back. Back on TYT, Michael Schur along with John Fugelsang and Wosny Lambre. Wosny is, of course, as you know, the host of Woz Speaks, and he is a writer at The Ringer who will one day cover hockey. John Fugelsang is the host of Tell Me Everything on SiriusXM and the author of Separation of Church and Hate, a sane person's guide to taking back the Bible from fundamentalists, fascists, there you see it, and flock fleecing frauds. It is a New York Times bestseller, so its author tells me. So we're happy to have everybody here, and we will move on to our next story now, and it involves the Attorney General of New York. So take a look at this.
The corrupt New York State Attorney General, Letitia James, corrupt person. No American should be okay with a political party being weaponized against their enemies. This is not constitutional. This is wrong in every aspect, and the judge and the AG should be arrested and punished accordingly. This woman should be under investigation for what she did. She's a disgrace.
Yes, there she is, Attorney General Letitia James of New York, and she has had a target on her back, as you can see, for years after she successfully sued the Trump Organization for fraud. And Trump is so desperate for revenge, always, for his entire probably child life, but certainly adult life, that he's now threatening to fire prosecutors if they can't figure out a way to put James behind bars. Earlier this week, ABC News reported, ABC News, you'll know, that Trump officials had been attempting to pressure federal prosecutors to bring criminal charges against James for mortgage fraud. Mortgage fraud, he loves to go after people for mortgage stuff. That's what Lisa Cook on the Fed is being investigated for. But they couldn't with Tish James. After a 5-month investigation and interviews with more than a dozen witnesses, federal prosecutors have so far uncovered no clear evidence that James knowingly made false statements to a financial institution to secure favorable terms on a mortgage for her Virginia home, according to multiple sources briefed on the investigation. Trump himself has pressured the Department of Justice leadership to investigate James more aggressively, and 2 officials, Ed Martin, the head of the DOJ's Weaponization Working Group, and Bill Pulte, the director of the Federal Housing and Finance Agency, have pushed the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia to seek an indictment of James. So what are they exactly trying to prove here? What is the argument about Tish James? Because you know that if he doesn't like what someone's doing, fire them, get rid of them. It was his catchphrase on his TV show. It's been his catchphrase in his presidency. You don't like the jobs numbers, fire him. We heard earlier in the show, we don't like these poll numbers. I told Rupert to fire the pollster because those numbers aren't good. Pulte and Martin have argued that James committed mortgage fraud because one of the documents related to a 2023 home purchased by James falsely indicated the property would be her primary residence. However, investigators have so far determined that the document, a limited power of attorney form used by James's niece to sign documents on her behalf when James closed on the home, was never considered by the loan officers who approved the mortgage, sources said.
Wow,
man, that's amazing. Lawyers,
they're trying hard, man.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I think that a lot of jail would be in order for this. Lawyers drafted the document itself for a third-party closing company based on a template that was never corrected, sources said, and every other document in James' loan file for the mortgage accurately stated that she would not reside in the home. Prosecutors haven't been able to produce any evidence proving James knowingly filed the power of attorney documents incorrectly to influence the bank. And Trump hates this, so much so that he's even threatened to fire Erik Siebert, the U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, if he couldn't find evidence, with his last day apparently being today, while we're here on the air. James attorney Abby Lowell is calling this a brazen attack on the rule of law, firing people until he finds someone who will bend the law to carry out his revenge has been the president's pattern, and it's illegal. Punishing this prosecutor, a Trump appointee, for doing his job sends a clear and chilling message that anyone who dares uphold the law over politics will face the same fate. John, what do you make of our president on the warpath when it comes to revenge?
Sure, thank you. Well, Letitia James's biggest crime was doing her job and proving that Donald Trump's business empire was about as real as Trump University or the tan or the hair or the teeth. Let's recall Judge Engoron actually said they massively deceived banks and insurers. The guy lies so much his balance sheets deserve to be in the fiction aisle. And Donald Trump is not suing her to win. That's the important thing to remember here. Okay, this is what he does. I mean, remember when he mocked Serge Kovaleski, the disabled reporter?
Yeah,
he did it because Serge wouldn't lie for him. We all forget. He did it because Kovaleski wouldn't back up his lie that there were thousands of Muslims dancing in Jersey City on 9/11. That's why Trump did it. If you don't lie for him, and we've seen this, the DOJ lawyer who admitted to the judge that we made a mistake in deporting Kilmar Garcia, that guy got fired for telling the truth. So, I mean, like right now, he's not suing her to win. Donald Trump sues you to bleed you. Lawyers in New York are like $900 an hour. This guy can burn cash in court. He is violating the emoluments clause in ways we've never seen. Democrats could have impeached him 1 minute into his inaugural address. He's made like $3 billion this year. No president has ever made money off the office while in the office anywhere close to this. So he can do it. He can burn cash in court just to make sure that you can't afford rent. It's billionaire bullying 101. Even if I lose, you lose more. And so now he's going to fire this guy, Siebert, the attorney he appointed 4 months ago, because Siebert wouldn't invent fraudulent mortgage fraud charges against Letitia James. Siebert's crime wasn't corruption. His crime was he wasn't corrupt enough.
I mean, that's a really, that's an absolutely perfect way to put that. Was what John's saying is so true. I mean, this is not about what the law is. This is about revenge, and this is about getting lawyers to do what he wants to do because he wants to do it. Where do you go from here? Because it keeps happening and it's so exasperating, right? I don't expect you to have the answer, but Tish James has been fighting this. This is clearly a spurious charge here. What do you do if this happens to you?
I mean, Tiff James she's in a tough spot because she did go after Donald Trump. And like you can say what you want about her case that she brought up against him, the hush money situation with the sex worker. I mean, it is what it is, but like this was kind of about as predictable as anything, that he would go after the people that they claim were practicing so-called lawfare. I think what's interesting about what his administration has turned into in the 2.0 version of Trump is that all of these MAGA people, they were complaining about DEI, and their basis was that, you don't hire on competence first. You don't put people up, push them forward for competence. You check an identity box, and that's detrimental to a productive society. And I think Trump is running his own kind of DEI in his administration, except it's not identity. It's like how much are you willing to suck up to this guy?
Yeah,
and that's what matters. Yeah. Like Kash Patel is a disaster. He's just
drunk, extremist, and experienced. That's what DEI stands for.
He's a disaster. But all he did was go on media and basically, fondle Trump's what. And so he gets to be hired, right? And I think that's what's kind of ironic to me is that these DEI bashers are now like in Trump's administration, it's the opposite of competence. It's like you can be as terrible at your job as possible, so long as you demonstrated some level of sycophancy towards Trump, you're good to go.
Yeah.
It's kind of embarrassing, man.
No, and that's exactly what
he has him. So he can, when he needs to drop them, he can blame whatever the scandal is on whomever and cut them loose.
And by the way, the feds, they're good at putting monkey cases on people.
Right.
Okay, they
When
do
they want
this
to.
every single day.
But
the fact that this guy can't come up with one against Letitia James shows that there's nothing to be done here.
Do you know how easy it is for these people to find something to go after them for, to prosecute? Prosecutors love prosecuting, right? So it's remarkable, and it's important we tell this story because you have to just announce it when this pattern is happening, when this lawfare is happening, as Waz said. So we will follow that story here at TYT. We are going to move on to the next story, which is a departure from Tish James, but it takes you to the Department of War. And according to an exclusive report from NBC News, the Pentagon is considering a military recruitment campaign focused on the legacy of, did anybody want to guess, Dwight Eisenhower, Ulysses Grant, or Charlie Kirk. And the plan could even include converting Turning Point USA outposts into military recruitment centers. While the military's recruitment numbers have been increasing since last year, they're still way down over previous decades. According to Chief Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell, the Pentagon believes 7% to 11% of Americans see military service as a viable path forward, which is down from 27% after 9/11. Maybe not the fairest day to take that poll, but it's certainly way down. The Pentagon established a military recruitment task force in June in order to address the issue. Now the Kirk-themed recruitment drive could be part of their solution. Possible slogans that the Pentagon leaders have discussed include, "Charlie has awakened a generation of warriors," according to two officials familiar with the planning. Charlie has awakened a generation of warriors. According to the report, Turning Point USA chapters at schools across the country could be turned into recruitment centers, and military recruiters.
Is this supposed to help recruitment, Michael? This is supposed to help recruitment?
Yeah, I mean, tell me, what is the end game here? What is the end game? And is this not just mocking, John, what we're like, come on, like how is this happening? How are military
come on,
people?
Kids, join up, do it for the guy who told you COVID was a hoax and MLK Day was too woke. Come on. Let's for him, for this guy who said ending segregation was a mistake. Let's give that guy a hero's flight back while the bodies of fallen soldiers are flown home in the cargo hold. Let's do it. Look, the Pentagon defended affirmative action for years. The Pentagon is the most powerful institution to defend affirmative action in the American court system in the history of my lifetime. The Pentagon has done so much to expand opportunities for women and for Black Americans and for LGBTQ service members, and it's now run by this alcoholic Fox News weekend prompter monkey sex pest, okay, who's now Secretary of Defense. Pete Heggs, it's like making my weed dealer the Pope. And so they want to have this thing for a guy who never served the military, never served his country, who dropped out of community college to build a career telling white kids they're the real victims. This guy didn't serve fries at a Chick-fil-A. And the Pentagon wants to make him the face of military valor? My God, I thought the Catholic Church was trying to drive away people, but the Pentagon's getting better. I mean, what's going to convince young people to risk their lives in battle? A Gadsden flag and a selfie with Ben Shapiro? This is, let him do it. This is gonna cool off in 2 weeks. These people are raping this poor man's corpse. This has been Benghazi all over again. How can we take a murder victim we don't care about and exploit it? And if you don't believe me, subscribe to some MAGA mailing lists and see how many mailings they've had to profit off of Charlie Kirk's tragic murder in the last week. I had the liberals were behind it mass emailing list. They got so much money. And then they said, we need money because liberals are laughing at it. And then they had, now it's the liberals aren't sad enough. And they keep raising money off it. That's all this is about.
Liberals aren't sad enough is a beauty. Waz, what do you think? Do you think this is gonna drive numbers up?
I don't, but I do think it's a sign of the times in the sense that I think you guys will remember that CIA recruitment video that was. They had the Latina woman up there talking about imposter syndrome and all kinds of craziness. That was the CIA going woke. So I guess this is the Pentagon. They think they're in a right-wing moment. And so this is their turn to beclown themselves.
Yeah. And I think what John said is true. This 2-week period is going to end. It's going to build to a crescendo on Sunday at the funeral. It's going to end, and then they're not going to know what the hell to do about it, because it's his record will speak for itself, and this profiting off of and martyrization, which I don't think will be successful, of Charlie Kirk is going to land with a thud, and then they're going to really,
It'll work. It'll work for other people who think ending segregation was a mistake.
Well,
that's true. The tragedy about Charlie Kirk, man, is that that's another topic for another day.
Yeah. Okay. I would love to have that other day, because there's so much. It is a fascinating American political story. That these couple of weeks have been really fascinating. We are going now to say goodbye to this audience. Have a great weekend to this audience, and invite you to stick around for the bonus episode for members only at TYT. Michael Schur with John Fugelsang and Wosny Lambrad.